Is masculinity opposed to softness? This is a question that's kind of interesting. If you watch the kind of manosphere out there, there is a guy named David Goggins who has a catchphrase that goes, stay hard. So it is these extreme athletic or tough guy things and says, you can do it too, stay hard. He knows that guys like a challenge characteristically, and he is giving them a challenge. But the question is, the opposite of hard is soft. And pretty much everyone knows if a guy calls you soft, it doesn't feel good. It means you're maybe weak. Maybe if you're a guy who's a bit overweight, you don't like the idea of being soft because it means you're a bit heavier than you want to be. But what is really going on here? Is masculinity opposed to softness? And I think the answer to that question is yes. So Aristotle in his Nicomachean Ethics in Book 7, Chapter 7, has this whole thing about how there is a certain vice called softness. And softness is opposed to endurance. So endurance would be resisting some vicious urge, some intemperate vicious urge. And softness would be given into that. It's really interesting. Here's this example of what that actually looks like. He says the person deficient in resisting. What most people resist and are able to resist is soft and effeminate, since effeminacy is a kind of softness. Then the example is, such a person trails his cloak to avoid the pain and burden of lifting it, and pretends to be suffering, though he has no thought that he really is wretched. He merely resembles someone wretched. And the idea here is, it's not resisting intemperate urges. You're just weak and you give in. It's actually a moral category than it is a physical category of being soft, at least for Aristotle. And the way in which Paul uses this word in 1 Corinthians 6 might be the same way. There's a list of vices that we've been saved from, and one of them is the vice of malakia, or softness, which is the word that Aristotle uses. And there, I suspect that Paul has something like this in mind. It's a vice of not resisting intemperate urges to lust, to evil, to passion, to anger. In fact, then the contrary vice to that, or virtue to that vice, is masculinity. And masculinity in context would be the virtue of overcoming all the things that softness does not resist. It is this enduring despite the fact that there's hardships, despite the fact that you want to do evil. So this is a weird way of thinking about masculinity, because it's actually a virtue. It's not, oh, you're really, really strong, you can lift heavy weights, although maybe that's an implication. It's not necessarily even David Goggins' thing, stay hard, as if running 100 miles is the key to masculinity. And yet what I think Goggins gets right is that masculinity, or the opposite of softness, this endurance, is not giving in to the temptation to take it easy, not giving in to the temptation to relaxing more than you should, not giving into this idea that you should just sit down and play video games all day and not take care of your family, not work your job. It really is a category of vice. To be soft in the ancient world was not to endure all the hardships around you, not to overcome them, but to give in, to view yourself as a victim, to be weak, and in this case, effeminate.